Next today, the Prime Minister was going to meet the Chinese President at the G20 summit. This planned meeting, however, has been cancelled today, allegedly due to that explosion in Poland mixing around everyone's diaries. It would have taken place after hints that Rishi Sunak was not going to classify China as a security threat to the United Kingdom. But was this a wise move for Rishi to go softer on China in order to try and get that meeting that hasn't actually happened? Well, I'm delighted to be joined now by Luke de Pulford, the Executive Director of the Inter-Parliamentary Alliance on China. And Luke, there's two schools of thought on this. There's those who say that Rishi Sunak should have stuck to this very hawkish line on China that he delivered over the summer, saying that this is a rogue state to some extent, that we shouldn't be engaging in that way. However, there are others who say that ultimately you do need to have these conversations, you do need to have these meetings, and potentially using language like threat puts that at risk.
I think the question is whether or not China is a threat. And Rishi seems to be standing by his view, which is that China presents the number one economic threat to the UK's interests. That's what he said. Now, the difficulty is that if China is the number one threat in the mind of the Prime Minister, and they are categorised as such for the purposes of UK policy, then why aren't we saying it? So there are other nations like Iran and Russia, they're categorised as threats. Apparently, according to the Prime Minister, they're not as threatening as China. Well, our policy has to reflect that. We can't have a situation where we say that our number one threat is our number one threat, except we don't say that our number one threat when it comes to policy. It seems a bit strange and incoherent to me. But it's more important than that, because the integrated review, which was supposed to be the document that the Prime Minister was saying, or we thought he was saying, he would change China's categorisation in, is a very important document. It orientates all of government foreign development policy around towards particular countries. So not labelling China in that way sends the wrong signals internally throughout Whitehall, throughout the rest of the country and to the rest of the world.
But what about getting those crucial meetings? There's the argument, of course, that other Five Eyes allies, that, potentially we should say Four Eyes these days, because New Zealand have gone a bit wobbly on this issue. But according to our most trusted allies on this issue, the United States, Canada, Australia, and of course us, those three other countries have not designated China specifically as a threat in that way. And the argument from Rishi Sunak is that we should sort of walk together in this way, and that makes us stronger as a pack. What do you say to that?
Well, first of all, the US has been exceptionally strong in categorising China as a threat, and has done so again and reaffirmed that under Biden's administration. So it isn't quite right to say that all of the Five Eyes nations have not done this. The US is at least 10 years ahead of the rest of the world when it comes to China policy, and very realistic when it comes to their assessment of the People's Republic of China under Xi Jinping. So there is already that division there. If anything, what's happening here, arguably, is a bit of a reversion to form for our Prime Minister in trying to seek a softer line, in trying to seek that kind of engagement which we know has failed. We had 15, 20 years worth of hoping that China would open up if we opened up our markets to it and tried to trade away the values differences between the democratic world and the People's Republic of China, or more appropriately, the Chinese Communist Party. It doesn't work. It has not succeeded. We have not succeeded in bringing them closer to our value systems. All we've done is we've emboldened the People's Republic of China to try to project their very different values upon the rest of the world, which is what they're doing. So, harking back to the golden era, the failed golden era, the golden era is a terrible mistake. And I really hope that that isn't the line that we're embarking upon now. Even amidst all this economic difficulty, there really is no sound argument for pushing forward an analysis of Xi Jinping which is false. China under Xi Jinping is a threat to our interests, is a threat to human rights, is a threat to international rules-based order, and we need to be together, totally together, in facing up to that.
Well, I suppose now that this meeting has not gone ahead, it's 5 years since the Prime Minister of this country met the Chinese President. Perhaps it will be a little bit longer now, and maybe that will lead to some reassessment of the way that we interact with that regime. But for now, Luke de Pulford, thank you very much for joining us here on The Briefing this morning.